The Disney parks have built a reputation for themselves as the happiest place on Earth. However, that doesn't mean that they aren't afraid to get a little scary at times. Maybe it's to add a little variety and to keep guests on their toes. Maybe it's to help guests appreciate the happy moments even more. Either way, there have been countless Disney attractions seemingly made just to scare children. And that's what we're going to be looking at today. We'll be counting down the top 10 scariest Disney attractions. Now, before we get started, I want to set some ground rules. First, I only count rides that were or are available year-round. Overlays and seasonal attractions don't count. So stuff like Jungle Cruise, Curse of the Emerald Trinity won't be on this list. Second, I do count rides that maybe aren't going out of their way to scare you, but have scary elements to them. If it's creepy, it counts. That said, the creepiness does have to be intentional, so sorry to say, no, It's a Small World will not be on this list. Third, one incarnation per attraction. By that I mean, for example, if I include Pirates of the Caribbean, I can't also include another version of Pirates of the Caribbean from a different park. However, if an incarnation is different enough and changes up the formula enough to be considered a different attraction, they can also be included. And because a lot of that is up to personal preference, do keep in mind that this is my list and my opinion. What you find scary might be totally fine for me, and what I find scary might make me look like a total baby. With that said, let's just jump into it. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the top 10 scariest Disney attractions. Number 10. The Haunted Mansion is no doubt a classic. Terrific special effects, memorable characters, a great soundtrack. It's basically what I think of when I think of a perfect ride. While it doesn't bother me personally, I can definitely see how some of the horror elements could scare some people. There are certainly a lot of gothic imagery, some of the ghosts have rather chilling implications regarding their demise, and the more quiet, atmospheric moments can get to some at times. The creepiest moment is probably the corridor doors. You are trapped in a narrow hallway, alone. There are people stuck in the rooms, violently trying to get out. No music, no narration. You are completely isolated. All you can do is listen. It's almost a relief when you get to the seance room. At least there you have some company. Even if it's just pretend, the Haunted Mansion has terrorized guests for 50 years. And I predict that it'll continue to do so for many years in the future. And yes, this is only the number 10 spot. If that's unsettling to you, consider turning back now while you still can. Nope. Too late. Number 9. The Great Movie Ride truly was one of a kind. Sure, there are plenty of theme park rides that simulate being in a movie, but no other can take you into multiple movies in one go. No other ride. It will truly be missed as the years go by. Who could be scared by this ride? It's just so charming. Sure, singing in the rain can be scary under very specific circumstances, but what child is going to know that? I guess if you're scared of animatronics, this ride might not be very fun for you, but the ride itself is really bright and colorful. Then you take a turn into the Public Enemy. This is the first sign that things aren't quite as they seem. Going from the bright colors of Mary Poppins into the dark and dreary alleys of the criminal underworld is a little jarring, to be sure. Characters begin to take notice of your appearance, and hide away, ducking their heads down as you pass. Then, a gangster bursts out onto the scene, takes your vehicle hostage, and rushes away amidst a shootout with the police, threatening a few unlucky guests in the process. In other Disney attractions, you can take comfort in knowing that you're just a bystander, unable to be affected by the situations at hand. In this one scene, the fourth wall is shattered. Keep that in mind. You barely miss another shootout in a western scene, and sometimes your car gets taken hostage by a cowboy instead, but before taking a hard turn to an abandoned space station. You're on the Nostromo with an unknown creature. The crew is dead except for one Ellen Ripley. Congratulations, you're right in the middle of Alien. There's a bloodthirsty monster you can't reason with running wild. And there isn't a fourth wall to protect you. This scene perfectly captures the atmosphere and horror of Ridley Scott's masterpiece, from the sets to the sound effects. The xenomorph is spot on to its film counterpart, lunging out at guests out of seemingly nowhere, and perfectly emulating H.R. Geiger's design. Yes, you don't have the context of the film, but you don't need it. It's all perfectly captured in a minute-long encounter. And if you do know the context of the film, there's a lot more to appreciate, especially regarding its accuracy. It's truly a showcase to Imagineering's attention to detail. There are a few other creepy moments. The mummy scene is a little spooky, the Indiana Jones scene ends with someone dying, and the Munchkin Land scene might be terrifying if you're scared of the Wizard of Oz, but nothing can truly top the scene from Alien. Remember, in a theme park attraction, no one can hear you scream. Number 8. Now we must bid our American parks a brief farewell to visit its European sister. Specifically, the Haunted Mansion's European sister. I've talked about Phantom Manor a few times on this channel, perhaps too many times, but I'll try to say something new about it that hasn't been said already. On the surface, it's an updated version of the Haunted Mansion. How could it be scarier? Well, how about a psychotic narrator threatening to off the guest while tormenting a creepy bride while possibly being her father or fiance or some guy? I don't know, it's still kinda hard to tell, but there are catacombs with spooky scary skeletons and demonic western scenes with a really grisly corpse and some rather horrifying implications regarding the story. My point being that Phantom Manor offers a darker take on the traditional Haunted Mansion formula. These haunts are not happy and they're not here to party. This host is not so gracious and kind. You are a welcome guest for all the wrong reasons. At some point, this becomes less of a tour and more of a fight for your life as you race your way out of hell. Again, the fourth wall is broken, thanks to the Phantom addressing you personally, and you feel a bit more vulnerable than you do over at the Haunted Mansion. Sure, the ghost house has a bit of a morbid sense of humor, but I don't think he'd hurt you in any way. Here? Nope. The Phantom has no problem threatening to kill you if you cross him in any way. Not even touching the story implications. Regardless of who you think the Phantom might be, a malevolent spirit stalking and terrorizing a grieving bride beyond her mortal existence is a little terrifying. Some parts are a bit more sad than scary, to be honest. One can only hope that they're both able to find peace and move on, whatever that might imply. That is, if one can stop screaming long enough to think about that. Number 7. While Tokyo Disney Sea gets much credit for creative and exciting attractions, its sister park Tokyo Disneyland might get overlooked. On the surface, it's just the Magic Kingdom with some minor differences in aesthetic. However, don't write it off entirely. There have been some very well kept secrets hidden in plain sight. Picture this. You're walking up to Cinderella Castle. Maybe you're on your way to the Haunted Mansion, or you just want to take a scenic route through Fantasyland to get to familiar attractions. Along the way, you see a sign. The Cinderella Castle Mystery Tour. A walkthrough attraction of the park's icon? Surely this will be a charming and fun little way to pass the time. When you walk inside, things seem normal. A cheerful host is welcoming you into the castle, explaining the history of some of Disney's most famous characters. Regardless of the stories and perils, good always triumphed over evil. Then, in a mirror sitting against the wall, the slave in the magic mirror makes his presence known. Unpleased with the emphasis on the heroes, he wants the guests to know that no hero is worth salt without a villain. He wants to test the strengths and heroics of the guests against these villains. The rest of the attraction has you facing off against some of Disney's best baddies. Talk about a bait and switch. One would expect, with a name like that, for this to be a lighthearted romp through an enchanted castle. Instead, you're plunged into dark dungeons with rarely a moment of levity. You aren't safe, and the only way out is through. Face the trials and pray you make it out in one piece. Your only ally is your host. Everything else wants you dead. You face a gaggle of terrifying foes, including the Evil Queen, Chernobog, and Maleficent. But what really propels this over the top is the confrontation with the Horn King from the Black Cauldron. Awakening the Cauldron-born, he threatens to kill the guests and force them to serve in his army. It isn't until one brave child steps up and points a glowing sword at him that he is defeated. Not only was the animatronic incredibly impressive, but the atmosphere, the music, and the build-up to his appearance helped make this one of the most memorable scenes ever put into a Disney attraction. Cinderella Castle Mystery Tour was truly unique. It lasted for a really long time until it closed in 2006. While its replacement was more of what one would expect of a castle tour, the atmosphere and thrills of the Mystery Tour have yet to be replicated anywhere else. Number 6. Our next attraction is only a short walk away at Tokyo Disney Sea, largely considered one of the best theme parks ever built. We head to the American waterfront to visit a treasured historic location, the Hotel Hightower. Built by Harrison Hightower III, it was acquired by a preservation society and turned into a historic landmark. Now, historians give tours of the hotel and tell the story of both it and its mysterious owner. Something weird happened one night, changing the place forever. No one quite knows what became of Harrison Hightower, but maybe you'll be the one to find out. Though, if you do, let's hope you'll live long enough to tell someone about it. Tokyo DisneySea's Tower of Terror is the best example of a ride variant. It takes a familiar premise and idea, and tweaks it just enough for a new take. There's intrigue and mystery, and it sets up the moment you step into the hotel. And it's all told through visuals. You don't have to speak Japanese to understand what's going on. That's what's brilliant about a lot of Disney attractions. They show, don't tell. In fact, the one thing you might wonder is why it's relatively low on the list. Well, I find the ride more interesting and mystical than scary, with the fantasy elements. The Cursed Isle is creepy. That plays more into the mystical than the horrifying. The drop is thrilling, but lots of rides are thrilling without being outright scary. There are rides that can do both, but we'll get to that later. Again, a lot of this list is subjective, and Tower of Terror isn't that frightening to me. But the build-up, atmosphere, and mystery is executed great, so that's why it's on the list. And if you disagree, that's disrespect. And I'll encourage you to remain in the comments section forever. Number 5. Okay, we got fooled by the Cinderella Castle tour, but maybe we'll have better luck back in the American parks. Animal Kingdom also has an attraction hidden in its icon, the Tree of Life. It's about bugs, based on A Bug's Life, one of Pixar's most lighthearted, child-friendly movies. Well, this doesn't seem bad at all. And Flick's such a nice, friendly guy. Surely this will be a happy and positive show teaching children to respect bugs and their importance to our oh sweet Jesus. It's Tough to Be a Bug is a weird little show, isn't it? For something based on a lighthearted Pixar film, it's surprisingly dark with a lot of kind of demented humor. I think it's the only Disney attraction with a body count. What makes it scary though is how trapped you are. When you're in a moving vehicle, you can at least take comfort in knowing you'll move past the scary part soon enough. Here, it's a show, so you're sitting in one place the whole time, and you're at the mercy of all the characters on stage, like a spider with bad aim, or a murderous termite. The show goes from bad to worse when Hopper shows up, not happy that Flick's putting on a nice show for the humans. He proceeds to stick a bunch of bugs onto us, hoping we'll feel an ounce of the torture that they go through daily. Spiders fall from the ceiling. Bees sting us in the back. I can imagine this show isn't very fun for people with a fear of bugs. At least earlier, even with the 3D, everything was contained on the screen, giving you a bit of levity from the situation. Now, Hopper and his friends are physically there, taking you on directly. No fourth wall to protect you. Yeah, there's a running theme of this list. You want to scare park goers? Break the fourth wall. Immersive, almost to a fault. It's Tough to Be a Bug will certainly make you glad that you aren't one. Number 4. Alright, so we got goofed twice. They're probably both outliers that shouldn't be counted. Let's head over to the safety and comfort of Fantasyland at the Magic Kingdom. Oh, there's a ride based off Snow White. Yeah, it says scary, but how bad could it be? All the other dark rides here are so charming. Surely this one will be absolutely no different. You already know where this is going, don't you? Okay, to be fair, it's not like Snow White wasn't already a little spooky. The original film could be downright horrifying at times. You can give this ride an A for accuracy, at least. But this ride, man, I think what makes it scary is how quick it is. There isn't much levity, and what levity there is doesn't last very long. The ride is practically from the Evil Queen's point of view, spending more than a good chunk of the runtime with her. You think it's going to get a little better with the dwarves having a party, but the scene directly afterwards is the scene with the poison apple. Poor Snow White can't catch a break, can she? And neither can we, apparently. I blame this ride entirely for the reason I couldn't get through Snow White until I was 10. Fun fact, did you know the Disney World incarnation went through a version that might be scarier than the one most people know of? It had no music, and the scene was even more macabre. What a startling contrast from the rest of Fantasyland, am I right? Sadly, the Walt Disney World incarnation closed several years ago, making way for a princess meet and greet and a Seven Dwarfs themed roller coaster. Probably more appropriate for the setting, and you can still ride it at Disneyland. But Snow White's scary adventures will always be missed, if only for the nightmares they gave your kids. Number 3. Who doesn't love dinosaurs? They're big, tough, and cool. Well, what if a research institute dedicated to paleontology developed a way to let the public visit and learn about the dinosaurs up close and personal? What if one of their scientists had the bright idea to take us on an expedition to bring one back? Sure, it's just a minute before the asteroid hit that wiped out almost all life off the face of the Earth, but they've got everything under control. What could go wrong? Dinosaur has a few things going for it that other Disney attractions don't. 1, it has stakes and tension. Placing itself at the tail end of the Cretaceous period gives us only minutes to get in and get out. There's no guarantee you'll make it out okay in the ride story. 2, it's dark and fast. It keeps you guessing, wondering what might be around the next corner. It's often said that what you can't see is scarier than what you can see. The darkness lets your mind fill in the blanks of what's going on around you. 3, and most importantly, while all this is going on, while you're on a mission with a limited time frame, veering left and right in the darkness, you are being relentlessly stalked by a Carnotaurus. It doesn't care about your mission. Its only concern is where its next meal is coming from. And in this complete chaos, if it's gotta eat something, why not you? Dinosaur was not the first Disney attraction to feature dinosaurs, but it was the first to put you right in the middle of the action. On the Disneyland Railroad, it's just a diorama. In the universe of energy, you are just a passive observer. Here, there's no barrier. The dinosaurs are big, scary, and coming after you specifically. Combined with all of the other elements, it makes Dinosaur a uniquely terrifying experience. Number 2. Imagine, if you will, you're walking down Sunset Boulevard, taking in the sights, popping in some shops, and just having a grand old time. But you're starting to get a little tired and want somewhere to kick up your feet for a little while. Then, you spot it in the distance, the Hollywood Tower Hotel. It looks a little beat up and rusty, but it might be worth a try. But as you get closer, things seem rather strange. The lobby is abandoned, covered in several decades worth of cobwebs. Yet there's an active staff, ready to serve you and escort you to your room eagerly. Maybe a little too eagerly. You're ushered into the study to wait for your room to be ready. Then, lightning flashes and a TV turns on. It turns out years ago, 5 people stepped into this hotel's elevator and disappeared without a trace. And you're about to take those same steps into the Twilight Zone. The Twilight Zone Tower of Terror is truly a masterwork of horror. The build-up and anticipation begins as you're walking up to the attraction. I could make an entire video talking about how effective its scares are. But to keep it simple, you know how a lot of these attractions break the fourth wall to make it scarier? Here, the fourth wall isn't just broken, it's in the next dimension. It transports you into an episode of the Twilight Zone, a universe where anything can happen and where anyone can die or worse. Very atypical of what you'd expect for a Disney attraction. Everything building up to the infamous 13-story plunge just heightens the tension and furthers the story. And the fall itself is as unpredictable, with the randomized drop sequence. It's why I personally find it scarier than, say, the Tokyo Tower of Terror. The horror is palpable, especially if you're familiar with the Twilight Zone. I could go on, but I'll save my thoughts for a possible future video. My point is, the Twilight Zone Tower of Terror is one of the most effective horror experiences that can be found anywhere, not just at a Disney park. What could possibly top that? Well, before we get to number 1, a few honorable mentions. Journey to the Center of the Earth. The build-up to the confrontation with the lava monster is perfectly paced, climaxed with a thrilling plunge down Mount Prometheus. It was going to be on the list until I remembered it's tough to be a bug exists, so consider this the unofficial number 11. Expedition Everest. More good build-up to a confrontation with the terrible monster. If only the Yeti actually worked. The Indiana Jones Adventure. More thrilling and exciting than scary in my opinion, but had some creepy elements. Dinosaur is overall scarier though. Roaring Rapids. The giant croc is impressive and intimidating, but not enough scares to ultimately count for the list. Again, more exciting than scary. Pirates of the Caribbean. The opening scenes are creepy and eerie, but that's gone when the actual pirates show up. And the number one scariest Disney attraction is... To get to our number one, let me take you back a couple decades. Tomorrowland once hosted a convention center right near its entrance. For a while, it was occupied by XX Tech, an intergalactic corporation hoping to sell itself to us Earthlings. Today, they're showing off their teleportation technology. Though things are not always as they seem, as the tech demo is less than successful. But we're ushered into the auditorium and into our seats, where a lucky one of us will be sent to SX Tech itself. A quick change of plans emerges, as the chairman wants to be teleported to us instead. Something goes wrong, and they lose traction of him. In a moment of panic, they teleport whatever their senses can pick up. What followed was one of the most horrifying experiences ever put into a Disney park. Extraterrestrial alien encounter was one of many attempts to get an older audience into the Disney parks. Though, unlike a lot of those attempts, this wasn't a horribly dated how you do fellow kids experiment. This actually had thought and effort put into the story and setting, with an original world not based on any existing IP. It certainly took cues from works of the past, but spun them enough to make them something different. All that alone would have been in the top tier of Disney attractions. But what makes it number one specifically? I've mentioned several aspects that can make a thing scary, and this executes them all in spades. Fourth wall? You're right in the middle of the action, so you can forget that. A sense of being trapped? You are physically strapped to your chairs, unable to escape. Intrigue? The world building done in the pre-show alone can get a mind racing about the story, and further immerses you. And, perhaps most importantly, imagination. Once the alien breaks free, you are left in complete darkness. You can only hear and feel what's going on around you. Your imagination is left to fill in the blanks, and as Disney has taught us many a times, your imagination can sometimes be the scariest thing of all. It goes to show that good horror doesn't need swearing or gore to be scary. It just needs to be, well, scary. Alien Encounter lasted for about a decade until it closed, making way for Stitch's Great Escape. Basically a baby-friendly version of the attraction. And of course, that closed as well, and the show building sits unused, save for a Stitch meet and greet. But Alien Encounter has built up a cult following in recent years for its tone and world building. It even got a shout-out in Guardians of the Galaxy Mission Breakout. With all the changes coming to the Disney parks, maybe Alien Encounter will be brought back in one way or another. Who knows? We can only hope. Even if that day never comes, we'll always have the memories of the original attraction. Because when it comes to being the best, or the scariest, it must be done with excess. And that concludes the list. Now I'll pass the question off to you. What do you think is the scariest Disney park attraction? Are there any that you think I missed? Do you completely disagree with everything on this list? Let me know down in the comments and let's get a discussion going. But that's all the time I have for today. Thank you so much for watching as always, and I will talk to you guys soon. Take care.